beginning of a legend. There are friendships in show business, and then there is what existed between Diana Ross and Michael Jackson. It all began when he was just a boy, nervous and silent, searching for something solid to hold on to. For decades, she never explained why he followed her with such devotion, nor why he once said she was mother, sister, and lover all at once. She clarified nothing when he wrote her name into his will, nor when he stopped speaking to her after her marriage. But today, at 81 years old, she is finally speaking, not to the cameras, nor to make headlines, but with words that reveal what truly happened, from the beginnings of Motown to something more. In 1969, Michael Jackson was only 9 years old when he met Diana Ross for the very first time. At that time, he was the youngest member of the Jackson 5, an emerging family group from Gary, Indiana, that had just been signed to Motown Records. Diana, on the other hand, was already a superstar. Having left the Supremes to start a solo career, she was one of the most powerful and glamorous figures at Motown, as well as a close confidant of label founder Berry Gordy. Technically, it was Gordy who signed the Jackson 5 after seeing a filmed performance sent by Bobby Taylor. But Michael often told another version of the story, the one where Diana Ross had discovered them. This narrative, though inaccurate, was used strategically by Motown for promotion. The label even released the Jackson 5's first album under the title Diana Ross Presents the Jackson 5 to capitalize on her fame. Michael adopted this myth because, for him, it wasn't just a communication tactic. It was his truth. In his eyes, Diana wasn't just introducing him to the world, she was saving him from invisibility, mentorship, and observation. Their bond formed quickly. When the Jacksons moved to Los Angeles, Michael frequently stayed at Diana's home in the Hollywood Hills. During these visits, he didn't just relax, he observed. Diana Ross wasn't just a mentor, she was a living model of what he aspired to become. He studied her sense of detail, her way of rehearsing every movement, her interview responses, and the way she adjusted the lights and angles on set. Later, Michael said that Diana had taught him how to smile for the camera, how to occupy a stage, and more than anything, how to carry himself like a star. In 1971, Michael launched his solo career while continuing to perform with the Jackson 5. His first solo television performance didn't happen on a Jackson program, but on Diana Ross's primetime special. There he sang "Got to Be There" and danced with an assurance that was impressive for his age. What the public didn't see was the work behind the scenes. Diana had prepared him with sweetness and care. During interviews that same year, Diana described Michael as a son or a brother to her. "He admires me so much," she said, "so I try to be a good example." The press loved this image, the confident diva guiding a shy young prodigy toward the light. Hidden feelings in the whiz. But behind closed doors, Michael's feelings went beyond admiration. He followed her with the intensity of someone who felt more than gratitude. He memorized her gestures, her way of speaking, even the way she turned her head on the stage. Over the years, this bond became more visible. Michael's brother, Jermaine, later stated that Michael worshipped Diana and saw her as more than a family member. While the public thought they were like brother and sister, those who truly knew Michael perceived something more complex and unspoken. Yet at that time, there was neither controversy nor public speculation, just a discreet and constant connection between two artists, one at the peak of her career, the other at the dawn of his. What they shared was nothing scandalous, but it was deeply personal. And even then, the foundations were laid for a bond that would span decades, challenge definitions, and eventually fuel one of the most mysterious and whispered about relationships in modern music history. Living together in private boundaries? In 1978, Michael Jackson took on the role of the Scarecrow in The Wiz, a major film that reimagined The Wizard of Oz with an all-African-American cast. This was his first leading film role and his first acting experience alongside Diana Ross, who played Dorothy. While this film represented an opportunity for Michael to explore acting and step out from the shadow of the Jackson 5, another motivation, perhaps more personal than professional, drew him to the project, Diana herself, intimacy in New York. By that point, Diana Ross was no longer just a mentor or an idol. She had become a central figure in his life. It was the first time they were going to work together daily for a long period, not just crossing paths on stage or in the studio, but sharing a private and constant routine for several months. During filming in New York, Michael rented an apartment instead of staying at a hotel. To the surprise of many on set, Diana chose to live there as well. There were no managers, no staff, no cameras, just the two of them. What happened behind the door of that apartment has never been made public. Neither Diana nor Michael spoke about it in interviews, but those close to the production noticed a change. Crew members recounted that the duo arrived and left the set together, dined side by side, and often engaged in long conversations after the takes ended. Diana didn't call him Michael, she called him baby, and Michael, known for his shyness, appeared visibly relaxed in her presence. Speculation began to circulate quietly behind the scenes. Makeup artists, lighting technicians, assistants, many believed there was more than just a professional partnership between them. Yet no one addressed the subject directly. The atmosphere between them was intimate, but never ostentatious. It wasn't a romance staged for attention, it was private. For Michael, this was a decisive period. He had just turned 20, no longer quite a boy, not yet a man. He was still seeking to shed the child star image and find his place as a solo artist. In Diana Ross, he found stability. She was someone who had already traveled the path he was embarking upon. Her presence anchored him, vulnerability and public confessions. Their bond went beyond simple emotional comfort. During breaks, Michael shared unreleased demos with Diana, tracks that would become pieces of his landmark solo album, Off the Wall. She listened, gave her opinion, and helped him refine the lyrics. These sessions weren't professional meetings. They were moments of vulnerability. He trusted her instinct and, even more, her heart. Those close to Michael noticed a change. He was becoming more introspective. He smiled less for the press, but seemed more serene in private. According to a former assistant, it was the first time he was seen loving without having to play a role. Diana never responded to the rumors. Neither did Michael. But their silence spoke louder than a denial. They were protecting something they both understood but knew was inexplicable. There were no photos leaked to tabloids, no confessions in the press, only shared memories between them and a bond that didn't need to be named to be real. Public confession and private silence. In 1982, Michael Jackson was on the verge of becoming the most famous artist on the planet. He had just finished recording Thriller, the album that would redefine pop, shatter global sales records, and make him a cultural icon. The little boy who once stood timidly behind Diana Ross was now in the foreground, carving his own path, but still haunted by an intimate truth he had never dared to utter. Everything changed during an interview for Ebony that same year. The journalist, expecting Michael's usual cautious answers, asked him a simple question. "Who is the ideal woman for you?" Michael didn't think. He didn't dodge. He looked straight into the recorder and said clearly, "It's Diana Ross. I love her." Jealousy and withdrawal. Silence fell. The journalist initially thought it was a joke, but Michael wasn't smiling. He was serious. He added that if he could marry anyone in the world, it would be her. At the time, Michael was 24. Diana Ross, 38, was already a mother and had been divorced twice. The age gap and the emotional weight behind his words surprised many. But Michael didn't care. He had kept his feelings inside for years and had finally released them. The statement quickly made the rounds in the media. Some saw it as a remnant of adolescent admiration, others as a publicity strategy. But those who knew Michael personally knew it was sincere. He was notoriously private about his emotions. For him to open up like that could only mean one thing. His feelings were deep, old, and very real. Diana Ross, as was her habit, remained silent. She never commented publicly. She didn't confirm, but she didn't deny it either. Curiously, the press didn't press her, as if there were a tacit agreement. What they shared was too fragile to be exposed to the light of day. Behind the scenes, however, tongues wagged. Jermaine Jackson, Michael's older brother, later confirmed what many suspected, that Michael had loved Diana for years and even considered her his girlfriend. He explained that Michael became jealous whenever she appeared on the arm of another man, without trying to hide it from the family. Then in 1985, Diana Ross announced her engagement to Norwegian shipping magnate Arne Næss Jr., and they married that same year in Switzerland. It was an intimate ceremony reserved for family and a few close friends. Michael Jackson was not among them. He didn't come to the wedding, sent no gift, and offered no message of congratulations. When asked why, He replied with painful honesty, "I was jealous because I've always loved Diana Ross, and I always will." In the following weeks, Michael withdrew. Those close to him noted a subtle but profound change. He stopped giving interviews. He canceled studio sessions. He avoided the spotlight, a rare thing for a man who lived in it permanently. The tireless perfectionist had become silent, introverted, and inaccessible. The language of music. The world then saw a superstar at the height of his glory, but behind the scenes, it was a 27-year-old man facing the quiet pain of unrequited love. It wasn't a scandal, not a drama, just the realization that the woman he had admired, idealized, and perhaps even waited for, would now call another man her husband. No one blamed Diana. She had the right to live her life, to marry, to choose her path. But for Michael, the suffering didn't come from the loss. It came from the fact that he continued to love her, knowing she would never be his. From that point on, Michael changed. He never spoke of love in public again. He no longer mentioned Diana Ross in any interview, neither as a friend nor as a colleague, even when asked. But those around him knew one thing. In those moments of vulnerability, when he retreated into himself, she was always the first person he thought of. The music speaks. When Michael Jackson released Dirty Diana in 1987, the public immediately imagined a seductive, bold, and dangerous woman. But the choice of the name Diana was no coincidence. For those who had followed Michael since his beginnings, this song wasn't just a track, it was a signal. For years, Michael denied that Dirty Diana targeted anyone in particular. He explained that the character was fictional, a representation of the women who gravitate around celebrities in hopes of manipulating them. But the timing intrigued many. The copyright for the song was filed on the exact day of Diana Ross's wedding to Arnaeus Jr. This coincidence was too perfect to be ignored. According to those close to him, including his brother Jermaine, the song expressed a long-contained pain, not anger toward Diana herself, but the frustration of a personal loss he couldn't translate into words. Nostalgia and the Final Testament. A few years later, in 1991, Michael released Remember the Time. The tone changed radically. Where Dirty Diana burned with tension and desire, Remember the Time is sweet, nostalgic, almost tender. And this time, Michael denied nothing. According to several friends and collaborators, the song is a discreet tribute to a love that never saw the light of day, a precious memory impossible to relive. In the music video for Remember the Time, Michael portrays a man in an ancient Egyptian palace trying to seduce a distant and all-powerful queen. The woman has no name, but for those who knew Michael, the inspiration was clear. Jermaine Jackson publicly stated that Michael had written the song for Diana Ross, and it made sense. The lyrics are not bitter. They reproach nothing. They simply ask a question, do you remember? No answer was expected. The act of asking the question was enough. These two songs express opposite emotions, one an anger born of desire, the other a bittersweet regret. But both point toward the same woman, Diana. At this stage of his life, music had become the only language Michael still dared to use to say what he couldn't express out loud. He never declared his love publicly again, nor mentioned their relationship in interviews. But every note, every word carried an emotion he couldn't live in the open. For anyone who has ever loved someone from afar, someone they could never truly have, music becomes the only refuge where that love can exist. And for Michael, music was his last love letter, the one no one could forbid him from writing, the testament, the sanctuary, in which he finally confessed. In 2002, Michael Jackson updated his will. Among the legal clauses and provisions for his estate, an unexpected detail caught everyone's attention. If his mother, Katherine Jackson, could no longer care for his children, the next person he designated as legal guardian was Diana Ross. Not a close friend, not a trusted brother or sister, not even Debbie Rowe, the mother of two of his children. It was Diana Ross, the legacy and the truth. For those who understood Michael, this choice was not surprising. He trusted her deeply, not only to keep his secrets, but also to carry his values. Diana had never betrayed him. She had never spoken of their private moments. She had never used his name to draw attention, And that is why he entrusted her with one of the most intimate and sacred responsibilities, the care of his children. After Michael's death in 2009, Diana Ross released a brief statement. "I can't stop crying. This is too sudden and shocking. My heart is aching. I am praying for his children and his family." She didn't go on television. She granted no interviews. She didn't attend the funeral, but her name in the will said everything there was to say. In the years that followed, another detail surfaced, this time from employees at the Neverland Ranch. There was a small room not open to the public where Michael had placed photos of Diana Ross, a quiet, private space with no labels. Some called it the Diana Room. Not a sanctuary, but a place where he kept a fragment of the life he had never been able to have. In 2025, Diana Ross celebrated her 81st birthday. She remained discreet, rarely speaking to the press. But one afternoon, during a peaceful family conversation, she finally said something she had kept to herself for over 50 years. "Michael loved me," she said. "Loved me in a way that can't easily be named. No tears, no drama, just honesty." Someone asked her softly, "And you? Did you love him back?" She paused, looked down at her cup of tea, then said calmly, "I had an immense tenderness for Michael, with everything one person can give to another. But to love him as he loved me, I'm not going to lie about that." She said no more. It wasn't necessary. That sentence was enough to confirm that the feeling had been real, very real, but never allowed to become something official. She understood that if she had returned that love in its totality, it might have broken the fragile balance between admiration and affection. "He gave me a type of love that I wasn't sure I could carry," she said. And because she knew how much it meant to him, she chose to keep her distance so as not to hurt him. When you trace the history from their first meeting to their living together during the whiz, to the public confessions, his absence from her wedding, the coded songs, the will, and that silent room at Neverland, everything becomes clear. It wasn't an ordinary romance. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was a lifelong bond, always present, never fully acknowledged, but impossible to erase. Final thoughts. Do you think Michael Jackson truly loved Diana Ross, or was it something more complex than love? Let us know in the comments. If this story changed the way you look at the legends of music history, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. We are unearthing the history they tried to bury. Plant the seeds of the future with us. The next treasure will be revealed soon.